So before I jump in to the nitty gritty details of voting, which, might be a little surprising to some folks, but I think it's a blast to talk about these fun process details. If you could just complete the poll that I launched to see if you've requested your mail-in ballot for this election and if you've submitted it already. Just so I have an idea of where you all are at in the process and can tailor the next part of the presentation to meet your needs. So that is awesome. We have a lot of ballot requesters in the room. There are over 100,000 ballot requesters in the state of Vermont so far. And so that's really exciting. And we just need to make sure that everyone has the tools that they need to complete and return those ballots. Okay. So it looks like most folks have requested it, but haven't submitted it yet. So I'll make sure that I cover all the details of how to submit your ballot. So Shayla, if you could go to the next slide, please. Thanks so much. So there are 3 basic steps to voting by mail. You can request your ballot, complete your ballot, and submit your ballot. It's easy as that. And if you haven't requested your ballot yet, the best way to do it is to call your town clerk and figure out a plan that works for both of you, whether that's picking it up from your town clerk's office and filling it out at home and dropping it back off at the town clerk's office, or exchanging the ballot completely by mail. Your town clerk is also your one-stop shop for information on voting, and they can answer any questions you have and also connect you or folks that you work with supports for voting, like translated sample ballots. One of the most important things that you need to remember when you're submitting a ballot by mail is that it does need to be submitted in time to be counted. So it either needs to reach your town clerk's office the day before the election or your polling location the day of. So those ballot requesters who haven't submitted it yet, just make sure that you keep those deadlines in mind and submit them as soon as possible to make sure that no mailing hiccups will prevent you from casting a ballot in this August primary. It's also important to note that you can still vote in person. The Secretary of State's office is working very hard to make sure that people can vote in person safely. They are providing masks for folks who don't have them, hand sanitizer for polling workers, and actually working even with the Department of Health to map out how all the tables and poll workers will be sitting to make sure that people can socially distance in the polls. So early voting and voting in person on August 11th will be available to you if that's the only way that's accessible for you to vote. And next slide, please, Shayla. So here are just a couple quick tips on vote by mail to make sure that you can get that ballot in and not have it spoiled. A spoiled ballot is when there's an error on the ballot. Either you've not signed a certificate envelope that you're supposed to sign, or you didn't put a ballot in the correct envelope, and you need to follow these directions very carefully to make sure that those little process issues don't prevent you from getting your ballot submitted. So when you get your ballot by mail, you will receive instructions with your ballot. It's called the certificate envelope and has this step-by-step on what to sign, how to complete your ballot, what to do. So just follow those carefully and you should be in a good spot. One important thing for the primary election is that in the primary election, you will be given at least 3 ballots. So you'll be given a ballot to fill out if you're a Democrat, a Republican, or a progressive. So you need to make sure that you look at the top of that ballot and make sure that you're filling out the ballot that is associated with the political party you want to be voting with, and only complete that one ballot. If you complete the multiple ballots, none of them will be counted. And lastly, if you have any other questions, the Alliance worked with our partners to put together a step-by-step voter guide that lays out all of this information. And we'll send that link to you in follow-up, and it'll be on this webinar at the last slide. But you can also visit mvp.vermont.gov or call your town clerk. Any of these sources are great ways to get information on how to vote and vote safely.